Hi, welcome to the show. This is a little bit different to usual. Like there was no intro, there's just some weird stuff going on. That's because I'm at PAX right now. I'm on booth 48, I think, if it's remember. Lighthaze World is the little indie game that I'm trying to promote at PAX. So we've pre-recorded this like a week ago. It's still kind of relevant. Well, it's all gaming. It's anything gaming. It's the Anything Gaming podcast. And here's Woody. What are we going to do? What do you want to tell me today?
All right. Well, see, here's the thing. Because of the special circumstances of this particular episode, I feel it'd be nice just to have like a free form stream of conscious kind of episode. Break free of the barriers of talking about this, or just like talk about whatever holds near and dear to our hearts as gamers. You know what I mean? What we love, what we don't love, what we used to love, what we hated, but now we do love, and everything, of course, in between, because that is the true essence of anything gaming. But right now, the only thing in my mind that I want to, and I decided just to open this, just set the general tone of this episode and just like how absurd it can get. One thing I want to give appreciation to is video games that have an elevator level.
An elevator level?
Okay, now I call them elevator levels. In my mind, the first one I can think of is the one in Streets of Rage, level 7, when you're going up the elevator, and it's either you and a dude, your friend playing with you, and you don't move around the level. It's just that's one platform, but you got to get rid of guys that are coming in and beating you up. A more modern example of this would be in the recent, it's in both the original and the remake, Dead Space. The engineering part that's actually in 4 levels, and when you're taking the elevator down, necromorphs come in, you got to shoot them all, and all that. It's one of those gaming tropes that it's there with the ice world in the desert.
So it's you could kind of add into that when you're in a helicopter, for example, and you have to just shoot from the gun, and you've only got this very narrow field that the game developers given you to shoot at. So you can't move around, you can't do anything. You're just basically tethered to the gun.
Good call. Oh yeah. No, it's just that part where you're just isolated in that one spot for then. You can still usually do what you normally do, which is fight or shoot dudes. But yeah, it was just one of those things that dawned on me recently. I was like, oh wow, there's a lot of games that just have that sequence. The rest of the game you're moving around.
The two that kind of come to mind for me is there was a Gears of War thing where you just got stuck on this gun and everything was coming at you from. I think the gun was almost 360, but I know that's not quite an elevator situation, but everything was coming at you and just trying to stay there as long as you can without dying. It was that I kind of like it sometimes because it does break up that monotony of get from this point to that point. All of a sudden you're trapped in one position and everything's coming at you and you're just trying to survive. If it was just a game solely like that, it would be very boring. But every now and then in a game, having that one level like that, it really does.
But the closest I can think to something like that would be Elevator Action.
Right.
The original game for the NES. I don't think it's on the Switch. I mean, it might show up there sometime. There's probably a version for it somewhere. A classic game, but it's just based off that. The stay in a spot and just trying to survive, for that long. In a way, now that I'm talking about it right now, it seems that a lot of the horde zombies mode, Call of Duty style, situation that a lot of games have today are kind of based off those elevator levels of yore.
Yeah, that's very true. But then then there's the other kind of elevator levels. I think Inside did it, where it's kind of the complete opposite, where you're kind of stuck in a very small box, an elevator, as you will, and you might be going down or up, and you've got to try and survive without getting killed. So it's the opposite version of that.
Yeah, I'm vaguely remembering that too now. I think it's actually towards the end. It's when the dudes are following you,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to kind of like bring these guys here. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
a tricky game. I
Yeah.
love that game though.
Yeah, me too. I was like,
No, yeah.
I think I like Limbo better, but Inside, it was pretty good. Like you can see,
It's
I think Inside's a better game, but Limbo just because it was the first one.
right. It's like both are just so good. In a gameplay sense, I got to give it to Inside. There's just more you can do with Inside,
Mm,
but from just a tone, Limbo definitely. And Limbo has one of my favorite video game endings of all time, but it's the complete opposite to another favorite video game ending of all time I have with Final Fantasy VI. With Final
right?
Fantasy VI, it's this long epic, for a Super Nintendo game, a 30-minute cutscene that
Yeah.
has like the credits and everything like that. It's epic. Limbo, I don't spoilers. Limbo, you go to the spot. Can I
Boom.
say spoilers again?
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll just say this: you arrive finally to where you're supposed to go. Black screen,
And
credits.
but do, but
That's it.
but
It
do you
just
like
ends.
that? Because I was
I
thinking about this the other
oh
day, being
yeah.
like making my own game. What is the best way to end a game? Is it like that really abrupt end, or is it that
Oh
they're getting this long sequence? Sometimes that big boss battle at the end feels so satisfying, but then they throw some like boring talking after that, and you're just like, ugh, why didn't we
well,
just finish with the boss scene?
that was the thing with Limbo though, because like the couple puzzles before the end,
Mm,
they're taxing. For that part of the game, you're at the end. They're good, so you're just rolling with it. You're like, you know, you're just rolling with it like it showed you the other cutscenes explaining the story. You know what I mean? It just happens as you go
hmm
along, and so you're just along for it. And just for it to just be like, nope, that's it, no more game. Like it was just like, wow, it was refreshing.
Yeah,
After seeing there's a lot of video games with a lot of great video game endings, and some are very minimal. A very good minimal one, the Half-Life series, actually,
yeah,
Half-Life 1 and 2. Keep it tight for an ending. You know what I mean? Especially two. Two is a game that just wraps it up and that's it. And whatnot, what have you. And then there's other great games that I love Titanfall 2's ending, and that was took a more like epic approach to it. I felt.
I, you know what I hate in an ending? Let me go with the hate train at the moment. Is when they have this ending and they kind of bring up the credits when you're doing something, but then all of a sudden you're at the start again, and then you got to play again.
Mm.
But then I just realized that's what I'm going to maybe do in my game. Um, so,
Oh, here's a question. I mean, one thing I've noticed, and this is just a natural occurrence with games. I'm sure your game won't have this problem, but just a natural occurrence with games. Game credits are quite long now. Like, have you ever sat down and watched Assassin's Creed's credits? Any of them?
well,
Like the
I just,
credits.
I was just going to say that, yeah, we should talk about the best credits of all time. And I think Mario wins that, where you've got the coin collecting in the credits.
uh, well, I just brought it up. The actual credits part for Final Fantasy VI,
Yeah.
oh,
I
it's
haven't
art.
played that. I haven't played that. Spoiler alert.
What? Yeah, well, it's the most filled with hope sequence I've ever seen in a cutscene, including credits. And this is, mind you, Super Nintendo game, Mode 7. That's
Okay.
all it's got going for it. It does not have CG. It doesn't have voice acting. It doesn't have any of that. And it still packs a stronger punch than a lot of other endings I can think of right now. Um, but even then, at the very least, the credits were reasonably length. It was an RPG, a long RPG for a time. It was a triple A game for its time.
Yeah, yeah.
So it had credits. But the sequence that it shows the credits, yeah, I can't recommend it enough. If anyone's watching this, seriously, look up Final Fantasy VI credits or Final Fantasy 3 credits if you want the original Super Nintendo one. It's spectacular. I'm sure. How many? Like seriously, how long are your credits?
There's 3 people.
All right. All right. Make it really long. Give it like a
Just
cutscene, like a
like
real long cutscene. Then one person, then another really long cutscene, then the other person, then another one, and then
maybe
like the total score.
maybe a photo of each person and then their
Yeah,
bio so that we can all get new jobs
yeah.
afterwards.
The entire Wikipedia entry, right? In the credits.
But I like the Mario credits where you can go and pick coins up and things like that. I enjoy that when you can knock the names of the people in the credits. When did that? That
Yeah,
was very early
that's
on
a
in the credits kind of
and yeah.
industry.
I'm assuming you're talking about Smash Brothers. I'm thinking Smash Brothers when I'm thinking that. When you can actually like manipulate the credits in a way, that's
Yeah,
always fun. I
yeah.
mean, after the fourth, fifth time you look at them, you're like, all right, you just press select and
No, it
zoom
was
past
one
it.
that I did recently on a Nintendo Switch Mario game. I'm trying to think of which one it was. Maybe was it Wii U?
Could
No,
be Mario Maker 2. I only saw the credits once, and I really don't remember them being anything spectacular.
no, it was one of the Mario. If anyone knows, just put in the comments because I've forgotten all about it. I thought it was Wii U Deluxe or something, maybe like that. When I got the credits in that, did that have? There was one Mario game, and I would just jump. We jumped around for age at the end, collecting all of his coins, and we got like 700 coins or something, just jumping through the credits. And then I think you get to keep them and then go back through the game again. It was just like it kind of got you involved in the credits, so you could get these extra coins to kind of use them in the game again. It's like, oh, I like that.
Well, no, I mean, yeah. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any Mario game that has that mechanic. I mean, I haven't played them all, but I know that's like in some of the Smash Brothers games in a way, like a certain version. That's just what I equate that to. But no, credit manipulation always a good idea to have. It keeps it interesting.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, and I got to give if we're talking since we, just in case anyone's we're still doing the stream of consciousness here. We seem to be on endings. One thing I do like, you see this a lot. I think Pixar movies created this, but the blooper reel. The only game I can think of that has a blooper reel, like, and it's CG, so I mean they made it a blooper reel, much like Pixar does, I suppose. Silent Hill, the original Silent Hill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, at the very end, after the credits, there is a blooper reel, and it's hilarious because it's Silent Hill. Like so, it's just funny.
I I don't think I wanted to say Mario 64 might have had a bloopers reel.
Mario 64, it ends with the cake. You see a couple. I recently played this game for YouTube. A
So you,
couple. Yeah, so it's fresh in my memory, and you just see the levels. Like, oh, there's cool mountain. There's
yeah.
dire ducks. There's
Okay.
rainbow, like stuff like that. Like which they normally do. I know, like Mario 3 does that. The little retrospective. This is where you were. This is what you did.
Yeah.
Was it fun?
Yeah, no, that's true. So,
Yeah.
oh well, I'm gonna kind of like stroll us somewhere completely wild and different.
Ooh.
Okay, so I'm going to be obviously at PAX. We like right now.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
but
As we speak.
I am super pumped about this. So
Yes.
I might mention that like 20,000 times, and I am not
Yes.
sorry at all. I'm not sorry.
Come on. Man. This is exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. But I'm actually in the booth right opposite Nintendo. So I get to watch Nintendo set up.
Oh my god.
I like I'm just
Look. Okay. Okay. Just a couple tips. One, try not to stare. Okay, always be looking down. All right, just keep your eye down until they actually set up. Okay, if you accidentally see something that they don't want you to see,
yeah.
it is Nintendo.
Don't
man.
worry, I'm gonna tell you all about it next time. Like that's
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like here.
Oh,
But
and seriously, bring a copy of bring a copy of like what I would do is I bring like an old copy of Mario 3 or something. Get like I don't know, see if Miyamoto's there. Get him to sign it or something. And, like
One-
have Have Charles Martinet sign your Mario 64.
I'm thinking, bring a copy of Mario Wii U Deluxe. Then no. Hear me out. Swap it out for Mario Wonder.
You're gonna need to set up an Ocean's 11 style distraction.
Yes.
You gotta need certain people. You gotta need the guy on the other booth. You gotta need the cosplayer over there. They're all gonna have to work together to pull this off.
Yeah, it's gonna be.
I'm over here in the States, so I'll have to be your like tech guy who's like looking at you like, all right, they're coming in through the left hall. Go down the second right door. Yeah.
That would be perfect, though. It'd be like an episode of Metal Gear Solid, plus then it rolls into Mario Wonder. Like it would be like make a pretty good YouTube stream. Not gonna lie.
I know though. If we make it like Metal Gear Solid, that means that one of us will be in bed with the enemy and is giving away our position. And I've seen how those games end. I've seen.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Speaking of ending,
but it got me thinking. Like I've got a list here of all the games that are coming out this year. Is there anything that you're like hanging out for this year? Is there any big games coming out throughout the later part of the year?
Honestly, other than Mario Wonder and a handful of just like remakes and remasters, you'd have to list them off to me to be like, oh, that one, or oh yeah, that one, or
well,
that one.
I didn't know that the Batman Arkham trilogy was coming to Switch.
Yeah, like that's more of a remaster, so I am going to get it, but it's not like a new game, you know. No. It's which I love. Batman on the Switch. I'm on board. It'd be nice if they got the NES one on there, but I'll take the Arkham series.
Spider-Man 2? Has that got you grabbing anything?
You know, it's actually funny you mentioned that.
That comes out the same day as Mario Wonder.
I want to just say, give a shout out to my brother. He's actually getting some surgery. He's getting tonsillitis, so he's getting his tonsils removed. Yeah. So if he doesn't know how he'll be afterwards, my birthday's coming up because you get laid up for a while. So he gave me an early birthday gift. He got me Mortal Kombat 1. Thank you again. Just want to give that shout out. But what I also got was I picked up Spider-Man Miles Morales because I had missed that. Me and Mike did an episode for Friday Night Game Night, but he only played it. I was just there for color commentary. You know, like I played through Spider-Man 1 on the PS4, but I hadn't touched Miles Morales. I still technically haven't. And it looked like more Spider-Man, and it's fun. It looks like I love Spider-Man. I love the Spider-Man game.
I think I actually like that one a lot because you kind of get like the super Spider-Man suit. You got like some more power-ups and stuff and it doesn't seem as clunky as the first Spider-Man. So I would recommend Miles Morales for sure. Like I thought the story was really kind of cool too. Yeah, I definitely. Alan Wake 2.
All right. I am not trying to sound like old man yelling at cloud. All right. Okay, I'm really not. I understand progress moves this way, and you either become part of the steamroller than the road. I get that. Having said that, I will not be buying Alan Wake 2 unless it comes out physically. My personal opinion, everybody. Put down the pitchfork. If you got the hard drive space to download all your stuff and you don't care about it going away in a couple years, fine. Download it. You know, enjoy it. It's probably a fun game. Alan Wake 1 was good. It wasn't as good as Max Payne, but it was a solid survival horror-ish. A little bit more wacky in tone, but still a good game. I enjoyed it.
But I think what they do now is they get games like Alan Wake, right? A game that they're not sure. When they're not sure how the game's going to go, they release the game digitally, they see what the response is, and then they release a physical copy another 6 months later. That's normally, it's like a testing the waters thing. Is there actually a market for this? We're not going to go and print off 1 million copies and then go, oh, we're only going to sell half of that. And then we've got heaps of like leftover copies that we can't sell. So that's...
But like, if that was the case, then why not be transparent about it? I mean, had they said that in the beginning, just been like, yeah, we're going to see how it does digitally, and if it does well, we'll contact limited run or something like that. You know what I mean? They could have done that, but they didn't say that.
No,
They
because
gave
they
some.
don't. Yeah, they don't
They
give
gave some
hope.
BS. Yeah, they gave some BS answers, is what they gave. All right, answers that, while at the very least structurally sound, can be argued away. You know what I mean? Especially the price point. Like,
Yeah.
clearly, digital ain't making the games cheaper.
No.
So you know what I mean. So that point's completely out the window.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I understand maybe they don't think it will be that big of a game to sell physically, but I disagree. Alan Wake, for wants and needs, is a niche game. It's not a AAA game. It's a
No.
very niche game that nerds with jobs and money, will buy and put on their shelf. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see, like, I don't the younger generation, the young kids that are strictly downloading now. Do they know Alan Wake? Alan Wake was what, 2008?
It was, yeah, I definitely think it was that time. But Alan Wake, you're right. It was this game in between an indie game and a AAA game, and that's
And I'm
still,
not saying,
yeah. No one knows
sorry.
No one knows what that area is. People don't know if people kind of go, oh, is that indie? Is that AAA? There's no like classification. No one is giving it triple B, triple I. Is there a name for that level of game?
Oh yeah, I don't think that's an exclusive thing. Just like nothing has to be either super triple A marketing campaign all over your Facebook or whatever social media page feed is, and then just like the super indie game made by a dude on a string shoe buzzet who just has luck and ambition on his side. Yeah, there is room there for the middle ground. I think Alan Wake was a good case of that. They did have a niche. Alan Wake was a very good. It still is a very good game. I recommend anyone playing it at least once. That's really all you got to do is just play it once. There are better games of that type in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
It's better than Deadly Premonition. I'll give Alan Wake that. And even Deadly Premonition ain't really that bad, or at least it's not as bad as people make it out to be.
So Alan Wake's not on your list. What
It is not. I'm sorry.
the day before that comes out with Ghost Runner 2. Did you ever play Ghost Runner 1?
Briefly, yes.
I hated it.
Yeah, like it's one of those games that you just try. Honestly, and I swear I tried it, but I could not tell you about the game right now if you put a gun to my head.
It
You know,
was, yeah, I just found it hard to
friend recommended
play.
it. Yeah, I mean, once again, it's a game that has its niche. It's just not on my radar.
Well, here's a game that I didn't know was coming out. RoboCop Rogue City.
Now that is interesting. I saw that, and what's better, it's at like the current buzz is decent. And I don't see why. It's RoboCop. You
know.
could easily make a decent game with Robo. For the record, RoboCop versus Terminator for the Sega Genesis or Master Drive, depending on your location, is I think the best RoboCop game. Not the best Terminator game, but the best RoboCop game I've ever played. It's a fun 2D, and you're just blasting things as RoboCop.
Are they releasing a new movie, or why the hell did they even make this?
No, I haven't heard anything about a new movie for either like the original 80s or the reboot they had. I didn't see the reboot, but from a friend of mine who I know that's a real reliable movie critique source.
Yes.
But a friend of mine said that, and he loves anything 80s, especially RoboCop. He said it was all right. He said it was a decent movie. Like it was a good movie. It wasn't nearly as good as RoboCop 1 or 2, but it's still good.
Yeah, I'm surprised that that's coming out though.
No, I'm definitely got to keep my eye on it. Like that's on my radar.
Yeah, okay.
I want to see if it's good. It's an IP, so it's either going to be wow, this is good, or whoa, all right, I'll wait till that's $10.
The price point too, because if it comes out at like a premium price, then you kind of like, you've got to find that nice price point.
It's now to the point where it's not just considered ethical and moral to, if you're going to charge $70 for a game, have it be a decently competently run game. I'm not expecting that at any point. But one must assume that like even if your game comes out and it gets reviewed as a solid C, even C plus, even a C plus, a C plus game, is everyone going to be willing to spend $70 on a C plus game, or the top price for any game?
No.
If you're going to pay that, if you're going to pay that money for a game, it better be at least B plus, if not A minus, for that price. If not, sure, I'll wait till it comes, and it drops like $20 or so in price. Then I'll pick up that C plus game.
Yeah. Because there's been times when I've bought a game that everyone's hated, and and I've absolutely loved it. Like, I can't remember games off. I'm going to have to think about this now, but like you've gone. Everyone's like, "Oh, that's such a crap game," and I'm like, "It's cheap now. I'll buy it."
Yeah.
You've never had it?
I have, but like nothing recent. I'll say that. Recently, if someone tells me this game sucks and I try it, it usually sucks. I can't think of anyone that's steered me wrong lately. But back in the day when you had to trust the magazines and stuff, yeah, you got either you got sent down paths where you're like, ooh, this game sucks, or it'd be like, well, the game's not that bad. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. I think it's a little bit more reliable now, believe it or not, because you're not just like looking at one gaming website usually.
Yeah.
You got your group of friends and all that. Any gamer that really cares enough about like game reviews and whether a game, like, they know well enough if a game's being crapped on, usually has good sources to separate the crap from the good.
I also find that you get companies, like, you'll get some reviewers and you go, that reviewer doesn't have the same tastes as me, so I kind of disregard their comments. And I know that them reviewers seem to like similar games that I like, so I know that them reviewers are the right reviewers for me, which I think is important.
Yeah, like, there are reviews. One thing I still haven't been able to trust IGN over the whole Resident Evil 2 review kind of thing. It's so tiny. It wasn't even a controversy, but it's just like stupid. I never get mad about anything anyone does that might be unethical or anything like that, because hey, Wet River doesn't have a bend in it. But don't be stupid. You know what I mean? The story was that the reviewer gave it an 8.9. The reviewer gave it an 8.9, and of course there were comparisons with the Resident Evil 2 of 98. And one thing the Resident Evil 2 of 98 did was it had the Leon disc and it had the Claire disc. You beat the game as Leon or Claire, whatever one first, and then you put it in the other disc, and then you play their side of the story. Them going through the police station, them doing it becomes a completely different experience. Now, in Resident Evil 2 2019, that makes a return, but it's not nearly as dynamic anymore, because in the first one, only the second time you play through, you encounter Mr. X. Whereas in this version, you counter him no matter what playthrough you're playing in. So it kind of takes away a little bit more of its uniqueness, I would say. But I guess the IGN people didn't notice it because they actually called out Resident Evil 2 on not including that feature. Not the feature of having Mr. X both. I'm talking about it completely. Like, they lament the fact that once you beat a game as Leon, that's it. Once you beat the game as Claire, that's it. Even though it wasn't. And they got called out on that, and they ended up bumping up the review scores. I want to say it went from 8.9 to 9.1.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Now, it was an honest mistake, like, I didn't, but just like, I was just like, wow, that was stupid. Like, that lacked intelligence, you gotta fact check stuff.
I think though with IGN, I think they get paid out a bit to promote games. I feel like there's a little bit of, here's some money, please give us a favorable review. And two, they seem to be young kids. Like, they seem to be like young journalism kind of people. They don't seem to be like they've been around for a million years. As soon as they get over 30, they're kind of like discontinued from IGN and they have to move on to another platform. That's the feel that I get anyway.
Well, I mean, video game journalism isn't that much different than, regular journalism. I mean, as a journalist, you're trying to find the truth, and you need to get some good sources.
Hmm.
And they feed you stuff, but nothing good lasts forever. Eventually, like they got nothing left for you, and they don't want to give you anything else, and you got to move on. It happens all the time in like political beats and stuff like that. You got to you got to protect your sources, and you got to be careful.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're gonna just burn a lot of bridges, and then you can't work for that company anymore. So then you do jump to another organization with a group of other people, and that's just the nature of the beast, really. There, but there are. I think that video game journalism as a whole is one of the, believe it or not, one of the more honest journalisms. And I know a lot of people roll their eyes and say, no, it isn't. I mean, comparatively, I'm grading it on a curve when I say this. Yeah, it's easy to spot the BS. At least for me it is. You know what I mean?
I think
I
you're right there. Yeah.
like I'm not saying it's perfect. There's been plenty of scandals, plenty of controversies. I don't feel like going through any of them right now. But I do have a couple favorite sites, a couple like old school magazines that I always trusted. I always loved EGM back in the day. They'd
Mm.
be like the best place for me to go to reviews. Today, I want to say it's called Nintendo Life. They're probably like where I go for if I want to know how a Nintendo game is.
Yeah.
And this is kind of like if anyone's getting paid off, it's these guys. But I gotta say, Game Informer has never steered me wrong.
Yeah,
Like
I could say they're pretty good too.
the
But
only thing they ever steered me wrong with was Dead Space 3. They gave it a really good score, and it was an alright game, but it didn't deserve that score.
but I remember someone doing like some little channel, and they were doing reviews, and they said we were maybe it was IGN. Actually, now that I think about it, but they actually said most of our scores are 7 through to 10, and it's because why are we going to review games that are crap? Like, why are we going to review a crap game and bring it to you because you're not going to like it anyway? So there's no point reviewing the games less than a 7. And
Well, no,
and that makes a sense. Like,
not only does that make sense on that end, but in a lot of ways, no matter what, no matter how crappy, no matter what your game is, someone is going to play it online and review it. Someone's going to review. Someone's going to put a review. That's why, honestly, if you look at it, there's probably just as much crap that comes out for video games today as did in 82, 83, right before the big crash happened. And because that was a big problem. It was just these unregulated piss water games were just being pumped out for the system, like all the systems. There was no regulation back then, and Nintendo clamped down on that. And now today, thanks to even Steam, for example, you got this Wild West of people just being able to bring out their games, even yourself.
I am
Here you are.
wild.
Yeah, you are. You're just putting out a game like that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. It'd be really hard to do that back in 1998, I would think, or at least harder than it is now. But it would have been it's easy to do it. Easy is a relative term. I know it's hard work, but it's possible in 2023, and it was also possible in like 1980 because nothing was stopping you from just making it.
There is a fair few indie games that have made it big that the developer has admitted to never doing a single line of code in.
Really?
Yeah, like what's that one with the fox, like the life tree or something like that, the tree of life?
Unic?
No, it's called the Tree of Life. It's like a fox, and the fox it runs around. He built that game in Unreal Engine, and it's just using nodes to define things. So the whole game itself was never coded. There was no code in it. He just wanted to tell this story, and it's the story of this fox finding its way through the forest. And I mean, it's quite a nice story, but he was more a filmographer that had the idea of the story and wanted to share it through a video game. And it did millions of sales and no code. So,
Well, hey, I mean, Paul McCartney did not learn music. He never was taught any music theory.
no.
He just picked up the instruments, tried to play what he heard, And I think he may have a teacher or something, but he never like stuck with that. He just went from the gut, went with what the tools that were available to him. So I wouldn't be, and not even just that. I mean, something like Counter Strike, which was just more or less a Half-Life mod. Like at the end of it, and that became its own franchise. That became this huge spinoff. Okay, now my PC knowledge isn't that good, so bear with me. But Dota, Defense of the Ancients,
Yeah.
even that was a spin-off, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That broke away, became its own huge thing. It's possible to make art without necessarily picking up the brush.
Oh, I agree very much with that. So
That sounded a lot better in my head before I said it out loud.
no, I was just in my head. I just saw the Mario paintbrush coming around and
Alright.
decorating you. Like all of a sudden, you had this Mario hat on. It was perfect.
Yeah, I've been playing a lot of Mario Paint lately. Yeah.
But WarioWare Move It is coming. Just segued straight into that perfectly.
Ooh.
Are you a Wario fan? Because I'm never quite got into it.
I am now, and I only played the game for the first time when it came out on the Switch. I never grabbed it on the Game Boy Advance. I heard it was good. It was lauded. People were talking about how great it was. But it was just one of those things. By that point, honestly, I didn't get huge into handheld gaming. Like, I had the Game Boy Advance, and my brother had the OG Game Boy, the brick. But I didn't really become interested in handheld gaming until the DS days.
Yeah.
So when WarioWare hit, I was just kind of pass it off, and I never bothered to play any of the other ones.
Well,
I
you
finally
know
got
the story of how Wario was created.
No.
This is so dumb. It was Mario, but they coded the M on his hat upside down, so they didn't have time to change it for the planned release date, so they called him Wario, and that was the original Wario. It seems so Nintendo, but like, I don't know 100% that story is true, but that's the rumor that I always heard, that they just coded his hat upside down. So they're just like, oh, that's too much work to change that. We'll just call him Wario, and away they went.
Well, either way, it was a wonderful happenstance. I mean, Wario, he's his own character. He's one of those characters like that doesn't need Mario around to carry his own franchise. That's the thing. That's the mark of something that could be a great character. A character that's based off a big character, with Mario, but now doesn't need Mario to tell its story.
Yeah.
I don't think you could do that necessarily with the bad guys. You really couldn't do that with Bowser. I don't think you could envision a Bowser game without Mario. But with Wario, you can. With
a new Flash segment without even wow, I've just got this. Characters would take a character out of a game and see if they could work on their own.
I mean, they've done that with some games. Like, they'll have the sequel, for example. You'd be like, oh, now you're playing as this person. Did they do that with Gears of War?
Yeah, I think
Gears of
they
War
took.
Judgment. I think that was it. Like,
they took some of the main guys out and they put them over there, and yeah, I think so. I'm like, okay, does Hyrule, whatever it's called, is with Link and not Zelda? Does that work?
I mean, they've tried it. Well, Nintendo never tried it, but I think I could. I'm surprised they haven't made a Zelda game with just Zelda and not Link. That's
true.
The two attempts for that was for the CDI, the Wand of Evil, the Wand of Gamelon, I think, and the Faces of Evil, one of those, and Zelda's Adventure. Both were garbage, but that wasn't, they would have been garbage no matter what. I actually think that is something. There's other Zelda characters. I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure Tingle got his own game, in Japan at least.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's some type of mini game thing. Like it has to do with maps because that was Tingle's gimmick with the map. one of his gimmicks was with the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, any particular franchise, especially with video games, you will get split offs. Like with Mario, even you got Luigi games, you had a Peach
A
game, you had a
Toad.
Toad game.
Yeah.
In a way, you could even say Mario split off from Donkey Kong, and he got
That's
his own
true.
franchise.
What about Tails? Did Tails get a game without Sonic? Oh, Mike is watching this. Mike is watching.
Well, yeah, Mike, if you fill us in on this, Mike, tell us. I don't know if Tails did, but I know Knuckles did. Knuckles Chaotix 32X. It's considered by many to be the best 32X game. I don't know if I'd make that. It's a decent game. It doesn't touch any of the Genesis era Sonics, but it's a decent enough game.
Yeah. No, it's really and this just brings me on to like, I'm just going to keep freeballing here. Like we're going newer games, like games of today, and new games released today. Their main characters are nowhere near as rememberable, is that a word, or memorable as like we all know Mario, we all know Sonic, we all know all the 80s, 90s kind of characters, but I'm trying to think of a game that's just released recently, a brand new game, and I know the main character.
All right, well, here's a good example. Take newer characters today like Arthur Morgan or Ellie from The Last of Us.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, that's one that's quite commonly known.
But one thing that these two characters have is the fact that they're actual people. You know, they're not some crazy cartoon acid fever dream. You know, they're actual, like they're people usually modeled after the people doing the voice. You know, it's almost like they're acting in it completely. And I think when you do games and situations like that, it's it's not as easy to really break off and have another character from that same world even do his own thing separately, unless it's a departure from the narrative. You know, when you're playing a Toad game, you know, Captain Toad, you're playing as Captain Toad, but Mario is the reason for the season while you're playing it. You get reminded of that. Same with a Zelda. If you were playing a game that took place in Zelda, it would feel like Zelda. It would have the music. It would have the the items and all that. It wouldn't be a completely different thing.
Yeah, but I'm just thinking. I suppose Drake from Uncharted is a well-known character from nowish. But he's very humanoid. They're not. There's no. Yeah.
And that game does have a level of comedy to it. You know what I mean? Not absurdist comedy, but like you chuckle. I'll even say that Uncharted I thought was always like dialogue-wise, at least starting with 2. One was just like looking back, 1 was just weird. But starting with 2, I think it had very believable dialogue, funny dialogue, not too seeing everyone talk like this and all that. You know, people seem more human than they ever seemed in any other game. You know, so that's probably why actually did good.
I think especially like the scene where Drake and his wife are in the house and they're kind of doing that almost wife and husband banter of picking on each other and being, you know, that's so humanoid kind of stuff that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I love it when they did that. And I love the scene where they play Crash Bandicoot. They pulled out the old PlayStation. Yeah.
I know the kids are like, "What is this?"
Yeah, like, and you're just like, "Ouch, my bones."
Give me my walker. I'll show you how to play that young kid.
Yeah, right. Actually, I just had that problem recently. I got to give a shout out here. My my copy of Fester's Quest for the NES doesn't work.
Oh.
Yeah. It's not the most expensive game, but I had it for a while, and I tried. I cleaned it. I cleaned the.
Did you blow
it? I blew in that and the console itself.
A double blow.
I don't got it on hand, but yes, I do have canned air. I do it. You know.
Oh,
get that stuff out of there.
You've got to get the saliva and the spit spittle in there.
The juice, yeah,
That helps the
it's
connection.
corrosive.
It
Yeah,
helps the
it
connection.
melts away, melts away the grind. But no, and I tried a bunch of other stuff. So I've got to put that one out to pasture. It
How do
stinks. I
you
mean,
how do you bury an old cartridge like that? Do you take it out the back, dig a hole, have a little ceremony? Is there
well,
or is it just chuck it in the bin? Like, is there any process here?
for the record, okay, so I tried it with my Retron HD. My Retron HD plays Nintendo, Famicom, Genesis,
Mm,
Mega Drive, Super Nintendo, and Super Famicom games.
right.
Um, so I'm not actually using a legitimate either front loader or top loader NES. Until I do that, both of mine are, stacked away because I don't need it.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get rid of it yet. I do have a separate box area pile of just disabled either games, controllers, or even whole systems.
Mm,
Because you just never know. I never want to get really rid of any of that because a good example is okay, so this actually worked. I think it still works with my Sega CD. My Sega CD's laser reader, the disc, the
yeah.
lens that actually reads the CD. And this is not, from '93. It's actually a Dreamcast lens. It's a
Right.
lens designed for the Dreamcast. For what I mean, it's Sega, so there's going to be some like hardware compatibility. But yeah, it uses that, and that was the replacement.
Yeah, right.
Now I don't know how easy it is to use just any old, lens. I'm not that technically proficient, but I don't want. It's parts. I don't want to get rid of these parts because you never know. They might come in handy.
So back to my list of games. With it's just been the tie-in for everything.
Ah,
The Persona 5 Tactical.
uh,
Are you
I
even
keep
a
feeling
Persona
bad.
fan? Are you a Persona fan?
I want to be.
Me too.
Okay, I
I'm
want to
not.
play the game.
I'm not.
I'm almost afraid to play it because it looks so cool and so stylized that I don't want to play it and be like, wow, I don't like this. I don't want to do that. And it's very lauded game. People love, especially 5. People seem to like Persona 5 a lot. And if anyone wants to sell it to me in the comments, go for it because I will get it. But I don't want to be disappointed, because it looks so cool. Yeah. I did.
I only played about an hour of it and it just wasn't for me. And it does look really cool. It just
Does.
yeah.
Like the actions, the menu screen, how it says X action, and it looks cool.
It looks like a comic book.
Right, and it's just, I will have to give it a shot someday.
And I know you're waiting for this one, late November, Super Mario RPG.
Yes, I've played through that game twice so far this calendar year alone. There's a reason behind. Well, the first time I did it is because I was testing out said Retron, like through my streaming, my capture card. That was like my test game, really. And then I'd say like 5 days after I beat it, they announced the remake. So I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome!" And that just got me pumped again. I was like, "I'll just play through the game again." So 2 weeks later, I beat that game again. It's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. One of my first real RPG. I actually like played through and completed. With the intent of playing through something and completing it.
Yeah.
So the thought of the remake coming out, I'm a little anxious to see what might be necessarily different as far as like the beats, like where this item is, when you get that item, this part of the story, that line of dialogue. Like I want to know what they change as far as like that goes.
I feel like they'll
But
make it easier. They'll make it an easier entry point. That's what they tend to do if they work on that first probably hour of the game, making it so younger kids can really work out how to do things better in these games that you had to kind of work out a bit in the back then days.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because I always thought of that game as being that. It's not the most complicated RPG on the planet. If anyone was actually going to make a serious effort to play the 16-bit, 32-bit RPGs of that era, like I would say that even more so than Mystic Quest, because Mystic Quest it's almost a little too dumbed down. You know, it's a good game. That's also a good entry point. But what I think is a better entryway point is Mario RPG. You play that, you'll be able to grasp, the Final Fantasies, the Chrono Triggers, the Earthbounds, like all those, the whatever Dragon Warrior game was out around
Yeah.
that time. To me, there was nothing between 1 and 8, but yeah, all those for that era. I mean, as games developed, so did even the JRPGs. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, actually, a game I do have on the back burner now is I do want to try it is Final Fantasy 16. I don't know if I'll actually like go through it, but I just want to give it a try. I tried 15, so I'll give 16 a try. Yeah, but yeah, remake is great. I mean, as far as RPGs go, I think it's my most wanted.
Listen, it's not really on my radar. I'm not an RPG kind of person, and I've looked at it and go, oh, I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure, so I'll just leave it. I'll wait.
The best thing I would say is to say try the original, but unfortunately, like the most recent way to try the original is with a Super Nintendo Mini.
Oh, I miss Sonic Superstars.
Did you though? I'm like, no, like that. See, that's the problem. I was pumped for I was happy for Superstars. Now, usually, Sonic games go south. Especially because like Sonic Mania was the last 2D and that was a great game. But I mean, it looked like a Genesis game. It was that style. So by the time you saw Superstars, you're like, oh, now we're going back to that graphics. But you were still pumped up. You're like, all right, well, that's what Sonic does best. 2D blast processing at its finest. But then Mario Wonder got announced, like right after that did. And it was like, yeah, I love Sonic, but if this I will get it if it's good. If it's good, if Mike comes through with telling me if it's good or not, then I will pick it up. I picked up Sonic Frontiers. I honestly played like an hour of Sonic Frontiers, and then that was that. But no, if it's up to snuff, if it's just like the originals, just with the new velour, then yeah, absolutely, I'm looking forward to it. But I'll tell you this, I'm probably gonna play through Mario Wonder first.
Oh, that's what I think I like about Mario Wonder. Like the thing that I like about it is it looks like an old Mario game, but then they've added a bit of a twist to it. So you kind of got the old vibe with a bit of the new, and I like it when games do that. That's something I can really get on board with.
It's just Mario just has that for its game for the platforming games, whether it be 2D or 3D. Mario's just the most consistent. Even the worst regular Mario game is still pretty good.
Which is?
For me personally, I would say that the worst 2D. We'll stick with 2D because Wonder's 2D. The worst 2D Mario game to me is New Super Mario Brothers 2.
Okay.
For the 3DS. Now that's the worst in my mind. 2D platforming going by, and for anyone thinking about loud watching this, yes, I am including Lost Levels, and I'll tell you why in a sec. But even though it is the worst one in my mind, it's still a very solid 2D platformer. It's still one of my favorite on the system.
And why are the Lost Levels better or worse?
So I would say the Lost Levels are better because they're just at least they're levels to tick you off, but they're very ingenious with it. You know what I mean? Like, I gotta appreciate the ballsiness of Lost Levels just a little bit more. In a way, that's kind of why I don't like 2. 2 is just it wasn't as much spark as with the other even new Mario games. But for basis, my favorite new Mario Brothers game would be New Super Mario Brothers Wii, the one for the Nintendo Wii. I love that one. That one's very high up there in like 2D platformers of mine. And 2, just like it kind of emphasized the coin collecting, which is fine and all, but they really didn't do too much for you. It was just getting a lot of 1-ups. So yeah, your save file has like 80 extra lives. Yeah. Not to toot my horn, but toot. I don't die too much in Mario games anyway, so it's just like to me, it really meant nothing.
So Mario 2D or 3D? Did you like it when they made Mario a 3D?
Yes.
Because that can be
1996.
very controversial when people have something that's so 2D and then they all of a sudden they make it 3D. It can kind of change the dynamics of the game very much.
I got 3D gaming at the perfect point in my life. I was 12, turning 13, and I heard of Mario 64, and I couldn't comprehend it when I read it in the magazines. I couldn't, like, you'd see the still pictures, but I didn't see it in motion yet. You know, there was no YouTube to just be like, oh, that's what it looks like. There was none of that. You know,
Yeah.
Commercials were few and far between, at least for me, because they just never played a whole lot until I actually got to play the game, of course.
Yeah.
But when I played it for the first time, it was Blockbuster Video in Stoneham, Massachusetts. They had this little kiosk set up, and I was just enthralled. It was the level. It's the level where you get the blue switch when you go down that slide there. That is the first 3D space I ever manipulated in a video game. Even I walked away stunned. Like, I still just couldn't comprehend, like, moving around in a space like that. Because growing up, you just play, like, yeah, there's some, like, you know, like, even in Contra, things that simulate 3D, simulate, you know, the 8-direction movement and everything in between, stuff like that. But nothing as just blatant as this. Yeah, it was just so wonderful, and thank God there was a great game wrapped up underneath that. And it should also be said that Mario 64 was not the first game to do that. There were other, even Bubsy 3D predated it, believe it or not. But it was the first one I played, and luck would have it, it still ranks up there as one of the best I've ever played. So once Mario got rolling with 3D, I was on board. Even with Sunshine, which Sunshine is a flawed classic. You know what I mean? It's for me, and I got hate on this once on one page. So I'm probably gonna get hate here again. Mario Sunshine for me is the worst 3D Mario game.
No.
Much like Mario, it's still a good game.
Paper Mario, the latest Paper, that was terrible.
That's worse than that. But I'm sticking with the 3D platform. I'm sticking with the pure 3D platformers.
Okay.
You are right. Origami King is way worse than Mario Sunshine.
It is the worst Mario game.
It is. If we're going off spin-offs, then yeah, that's... Well, if we're going on actual spin-offs, I guess... You know what? No, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I enjoyed Mario is Missing more than I enjoyed Origami King. There, I said it. Because even though it was boring in an educational game, I like history. So, yes, you are right. But as far as the 3D game goes, Sunshine... While not as good, it didn't really knock my socks off the way 64 or even Galaxy did. It was still a very competent moving around in a 3D space. And plus, by the time that came out, you know, Banjo-Kazooie had come out, Donkey Kong 64 had come out, you know, Spyro, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Spyro had definitely come out by then. It's Crash Bandicoot as well. So you had all these other players now perfecting the 3D space. So even though Sunshine was a very competently made game, it's just the tropical theme throughout the game. And,
I kind of liked it. So I'm gonna have the hate person here, and that's the one where I shoot water to get the.
That part's nice.
Yeah, I like that part.
I always kind of use the Halloween 3 scenario with it. For the uninitiated, Halloween 3 is part of the Halloween series. Michael Myers, mask, knife, stabs. He's not in the third one. He has nothing to do with the third one. The third one's about masks that kill kids, and it has robots in it. You know what I mean? And it's one of my favorite movies. It is. It's one of my favorite Halloween movies to watch. It's not a Halloween movie as far as like that series.
Okay, so you're gonna say that. So you're going to say that Mario Sunshine is a fantastic game if you look at it not as a Mario game?
If Mario wasn't the character in the game, and you were playing as a character, and you did the same stuff, it had, you know, moving around, you collected your MacGuffins, and you washed away all the groovy and stuff, I would still hold in my heart as an unheralded classic that would deserve its own series.
Okay.
I would want to see where that series goes ahead, you know? Taking Mario out of it, putting Mario into it, especially when you would look at Galaxy, because Galaxy
is great.
That brought Mario back. You know what I mean? And even though it had a lot of outer space things and it looked like, the Dreadnought level and all these like UFO looking things were just like wild, you still had your basic Mario vibe to it. Way more than Sunshine did. So I was able to just latch onto that way more.
Yeah, I see that. I was surprised. Okay, so weird thoughts here. If Nintendo was stuck solid with the whole 2D idea, Mario could have well died. Second to that, I was surprised that they went to 3D and then they went back again to 2D for some Mario games. Like, that's kind of a ballsy move in some regard. Like, they kind of made the transition to 3D. You think, let's just stay 3D. Why kind of go back?
Well, because they didn't go back; they went side by side.
Yeah.
The 3D for a time, the 3D Mario's were, you would think, with the consoles, the GameCube, the Wii, whereas like the new Super Mario, for example, that was on the DS.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was kind of make or break. That was that was when Mario went back to 2D in my mind.
I say,
by this,
the Switch has brought the two together almost. If it wasn't for the Switch, it wouldn't have brought the 2D and the 3D Mario together. Otherwise, we would have had them separate still.
right. I mean, and that's why they can coexist now. Is because they had that initial divide. By the time New Super Mario Brothers Wii came out, which was like really when 2D Mario came back to the consoles, I think the 2D revolution had already started to begun. Super Meat Boy was out by then. Mega Man 9 was out by then. Mega Man 9, I'll credit for a lot of that as far as like the style coming back.
I feel like you're a Mega Man fan or something.
Oh, I didn't know I gave off that impression. Yeah, well, no, hey, I'll like that's something I'll always talk about. How I feel that you'll notice the indie game scene before Mega, and it's weird calling anything Mega Man indie because it's Capcom, but the indie scene before that was bringing out a lot of cool like 2D platformers, even back
Hollow
then.
Knight, I think,
yeah.
Does that come out there?
And there were some that were real pixelated based, Super Meat Boy being one of them. But to me, the way I saw it, once Mega Man 9 came out again, well, not again for the first time, it really seemed to make that like, yeah, it's weird when they talk about that being a style, that retro wave, I've heard bit punk be freaking tossed around where everything looks just pixelated like it's in a 1980s NES game. But it kind of brought it back. It wasn't the norm anymore. But that own style actually came back and influenced a lot of other games that you still see today, with like Axiom Verge. That was a game that did it very well. Even games like Scott Pilgrim, for example, had a bit of it.
I'm kind of excited right now about the pixel scene. For a big time there, if you were making an indie game, you had to make a pixel game. Like anything else wasn't good enough. And I like it now that we've gone away from that. It doesn't have to all be pixel based. And we've got a little bit of variety now coming out of indie developers. That's what I like.
Well, a good portion of that is because now you do have like a good subsect of the gaming audience who like really didn't grow up with that bit style, and they're just as much gamers as anybody else. They love it. It's their thing. They'll never get rid of it. But when they think of where they started with, by that time, it was 3D. Like there was 3D elements, stuff like that. To that, my own brother, because he's like that. He knows it because of me. But by the time he was old enough to comprehend a video game, you had things like Turok and Super Mario and Shadows of the Empire and all the other N64 games I had, or Resident Evil, where the style, it looks old now, but it ain't just the blocks that the Atari and the NES and even the SNES was dealing with.
Well, just so you know, I'm at PAX and I'm really excited right now as you're watching this, if you're watching it live.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we should wrap up where we're at here. And
yeah, I think this was actually a good format. I enjoyed this tonight.
It was pretty fun.
No, well, because to the viewers watching this, we're still trying to find our feet on this one,
Yeah.
and I felt we covered some great topics. I believe this is what episode 8, episode 9.
I can't
We've
even
covered some like,
remember.
yeah, yeah, we're just so far ahead now, and we covered some great topics. But we have noticed that sometimes the best topics. I mean, I opened that video up with elevator levels. And somehow we were able to work that around to, the styles that indie games have taken over the last couple of years. It went back. It went to that. So it just goes to show you. Sometimes if you just have a good stream of consciousness vibe, a session where you just let it out and say what's on your mind, you can get some really deep discussions going on.
I
And,
agree.
and, and of course, I hope you use this type of conversational power when you're killing it at PAX. And when Nintendo comes over to you, it's like, all right, we give up. All right, you do it.
Here's my
You,
money.
we
Here's our
yeah,
money. Here's
here it
our
is.
money.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And you will say that, and you will demand an
And
actual
I
real
will
life
say,
Yoshi dinosaur to ride
I will say,
anywhere you go.
I am not for sale. I am not anyone's bitch. I am not for
Yep.
sale.
What you'll do is you'll take that check and you'll be like, "Oh, it's that cute. Ain't that cute? Yeah, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. You know how we're gonna celebrate this? Confetti.
And then I go
Yeah,
and cry into my.
I know. Yeah,
I could have been with Nintendo.
I think it.
Yep.
But no, we're just like on behalf of myself and I believe everyone here at Radio Bush Gaming. We're hoping you safest travels and greatest of experiences at PAX.
I know.
Yeah, I think I've seen your
Thank you.
footage. I think you're gonna kill it. I think you're gonna do wonderful. I think you're
Thank.
gonna you're gonna perk up some ears. Is what I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Well, let's see. Let's hope so. And thank you for that. And next week we'll be talking about what I did in PAX and what I saw, which would be that I didn't really see because I'll pretend I didn't see it, but I did actually
Right?
see
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
The stuff you can legally.
Yeah, I'll tell you all the insides and outsides of what a gaming show does beforehand and the things the public don't see. I think that'll be an interesting starting point. Anyway, everything from Anything Gaming, we are tapping out for now and we will talk again soon.